Hello. Hello, hello, hello. Hi. Welcome. So enjoy just a moment of silence to yourself, especially if you're watching this in the replay. This is my very first time streaming, and I'm having some technical difficulties, so I just want to make sure everybody gets the updated links that they need to join us. So I'm just going to take a moment and try to make sure some people might be able to join us. So let's see here. Welcome, welcome. And if you are here listening, you have found the right place to be for staying safe and spreading peace. This is a class all about keeping your cool in conflict. And thank you for being here. This is my very first YouTube live stream. If you are here with me live, you persevered through technical difficulties with me, so I really appreciate that. We are starting quite a bit later than I intended, but hey, this is how it goes. And it's good practice for what we're talking about here, trying to keep our cool in moments of conflict, right? Because they happen all throughout the course of our day. But before we really dive in, let's take a moment to breathe together and get here. Slow down a bit. Maybe look up without necessarily moving your head to do it. While you take a deep breath. Thank you. And also, really quick, enjoy these flowers with me. I just had to pick these and have them here for our class, just in case. It always helps me to have something I can grab and like smell or sense really quickly. And I figured somebody watching might love purple hyacinths. So let me know if that is you. And yeah, we're going to dive right in. So I am not necessarily going to pause for comments as they come, but please, if you're here with me live, let me know if you have questions. Do comment along with me. Say hi when you get here. I would love to connect with you, and I will pause to come back to comments so that I don't necessarily get distracted while delivering what I've got prepared for you, because there's quite a bit, and now we're starting a half an hour late, but I would still like to respect the 2:00 end time. So that's gonna be fun. Let's see how it goes. And if you are here live, and hey, even if you're watching the replay, I would love if you would comment and let me know what you're hoping to get out of this. Is there something specific that you're looking for? Some specific challenge or relationship that you're looking for support with? Is there an intention that you have for this class? Think about it, reflect on it. Even if you don't, let me know in the comments, though I would really love to hear what's up for you. And you can always reach out to me directly too. I genuinely would love to connect with you if you're here and you enjoy what I have to say, especially. And even if you don't enjoy what I have to say, you can still feel free to let me know that. I am open to whatever your feedback is, and it only helps me get better and deliver you with what you actually need from me. I'm open to your thoughts on that. But for today, we're talking about keeping your cool in moments of conflict. And I was just really inspired to offer this class because I have been hearing from people close to me that there's a lot of intensity going on in the world right now. And I work from home. I don't necessarily um, get out that much. We're in the middle of a pandemic, and I already, worked from home, and my partner also, he is working at home right now. And uh yeah, so I am removed from it, but at the same time, I understand what it's like to deal with a lot of conflict at work. Before I started my current job, my current business here teaching conscious wholeness, I was in mental health, and I worked with people who had significant mental health challenges that they were dealing with. And there definitely were a lot of times where I needed to de-escalate situations. And de-escalation is such a big buzzword in our world right now. And it's a useful skill for anybody to have, to be able to keep cool, to bring the level of the room down or up or whatever it needs in the moment, but to do so intentionally. So I want to help you do that today. And before we really get going, what is this not? Let's be very clear about what this is not. I am not encouraging you to put yourself in danger to de-escalate any type of situation. Absolutely respond to emergency situations in the way that you feel best. Uh, in whatever moment, emergency moments are not one size fits all. So if there is something around you that needs to be de-escalated, or it's like a serious thing, like I know I talked in the marketing for this about the potential of threats at work. There's a lot of shootings going on right now. Like if there's an active shooter, I am not suggesting that you stay where you are and just like, you know, be love. That's not necessarily what we're talking about here. Every situation is unique, and I want you to be safe. So please do. And this is not anything to take above and beyond like your training. So you might have professional training if you are somebody who is in healthcare and you work directly with clients, or if you work with the general population, you might have some sort of de-escalating training or protocol that you need to go through. And this is not ever suggesting that you shouldn't do what your protocol is. I want you to take what we're talking about today and really try it on, see what fits you, and use these as potential tools and supports that you can use in emergency situations or any conflicting situations as they come up. It's not a one size fits all. Every situation is different. And if there's ever any way that I can help with sorting out what a certain situation calls for, I am here for that. This is also not techniques for physical de-escalation, if you haven't gathered that yet. This isn't like a self-defense type of course or anything like that. This is very much about the internal things that we can always control and how to use our inner resources to be the calm in the storm, right? To keep our cool when things get shaken up around us, because life does shake things up. Um, when we take this approach, this is a very nonviolent approach for bringing down the intensity during moments of conflict. And, sometimes bringing down the intensity isn't even what we need. But if there's a situation where people are feeling afraid, or like if you are having your boundaries crossed, or, there are situations that require the intensity to come down a little bit, and I want to give you tools to be able to do that. And this could also help, related to it being a nonviolent approach. If you are in a situation where you're going to protests and things like that, nonviolent protests, and there are, you know, people provoking you, trying to provoke you out of nonviolence. Like, maybe these strategies could help you to maintain a state of nonviolence. That is one application. There are literally endless ways that you can use the information I'm going to share with you today. I literally used this just getting ready for this class because I'm working from home, right? And everybody gets this at this point. Working from home with everybody in the house, it can be a little bit challenging. It can be a little bit distracting. And being able to tap into these strategies that I'm going to share, it helps me to keep my cool. It helps me to stay grounded, to stay focused on what I'm doing and what I need, even when the world around me tries to pull me away from that. So, yeah. And getting ready for this live stream, it would have been so easy to lose my cool, this being 30 minutes late. And, I am a little bit hungry, which is not ideal. And that always adds an extra challenge, right? So I literally use this all the time. And that's actually important. That is something to really consider, that part of these techniques that I'm going to share with you is about practicing them in the moments when you're not in a conflict, when you're not having a crazy emergency situation, so that they are habit for you, so that it is just kind of a natural choice to make. When you're practicing it regularly, when you're practicing these concepts regularly, they become habit. They become your go-to. And that's what I teach about inside of Conscious Wholeness. So if you find yourself really wanting a place that you can go on a regular basis to practice these things and get feedback with other people from me, I would always love to have you inside of Conscious Wholeness. And I'm going to share more about how you can get connected with us over there later. But for now, why don't I back up a little bit and just give a little bit more background about where I'm coming from and why you should listen to me when it comes to these things. Because like I said before, I work from home. I don't get out much anymore. Do you? I mean, we're in the middle of a pandemic, and I thankfully don't have to deal with these scary situations on a day-to-day basis. That's also in part my privilege, right? I don't have to feel as scared as others might feel going out in the world. And that's really what we're talking about here, is being able to release fear in the moments of conflict and step out of the fearful place into a more intentional place. That's like the core of what we're talking about here. But I do understand, even though I don't experience these things on a day-to-day basis anymore, I do understand what it's like to face a lot of conflict, especially in professional settings. As I mentioned before, I used to be a mental health case manager, and I absolutely had moments that I was scared to be around somebody or around the person or in the area that I was in at the time that I was in it. And these skills, I practiced them already on some level, but it wasn't intentional. And I didn't super know how to take care of myself. But I do know what it's like to sit across the room from somebody, alone in a room with somebody who like has just attacked another care provider the other day. You know, I've sat in a car with a client who told me that their voices wanted them to kill me, you know? So I get what it's like to be in a moment of like, wow, like boundaries are being crossed. This feels a little scary and intense. And how do we drive this car away from the intensity, you know? How do we move through the stressful moment for the best of everybody involved? Because, you know, especially somebody like a healthcare case manager or a police officer or anybody who's working with the public and who really genuinely wants to help people, you know, at the end of the day, we want everybody to get through a conflicting moment without uh, being hurt, without anything super serious, negative happening. You know, we want people to do well and to succeed. So when we can come into these conflicting, I keep saying conflicting, I feel like that's a weird way to say it, but thank you. When we come into these conflicting situations, we have the ability to set the tone for everyone around us and really like take responsibility for the outcomes that people are having. Not too much, you know, sometimes we do need to set boundaries and like be ferocious, and I'll talk about that a little bit more. But you know, we really have the ability to lift up the people around us, to make a bad situation better as opposed to building on the conflict, because everybody can relate to being in a conflict where you're building each other up. It's like one person says a thing and then another person takes it up to the next level, and then it just keeps up, up, up. I don't know about you. That's how about 99% of arguments in my household start. It's just like, you know, maybe someone's hungry, maybe someone's tired, and we don't have the resources we usually have. And, you know, you just build it up, build it up. This practice here that I'm sharing is about noticing that there's like an awareness that's required. So you recognize the buildup and you respond by taking it back down, holding the tone where it needs to be. So I hope this is making sense to you. I'm not necessarily seeing any comments, and I'm not used to this live stream thing, but I appreciate you being with me. It does look like I have a few people here, so thank you for being here. Yeah, so let's just dive in to the techniques that I have for you today. So the first thing I'll talk to you about is basically the mindset that you're bringing into the situation. Oh, and I'm going to backtrack and say really quickly that when you can hold the ground, like I just mentioned before, you know, you have the awareness and the natural response to ground a room. Sometimes you can stop conflicts from even starting in the first place. And really, that's the goal, you know, where you can always, and it's not that the conflicts won't happen, that the things that need to be worked out won't be worked out. Like, we do need to deal with our stuff, and we do need to work out what needs to get worked out. But it's a different, less heightened, less reactive way of responding to conflict, and a more grounded, intentional way of responding. So, anyway, moving into the first technique here, I consider this a mindset technique, and let's say that it's important to be very non-judgmental of the people that you are interacting with, and empathizing with the people or the person that is standing in front of you. So, like, for instance, and I understand there are some situations where this might not be appropriate, especially right in the moment. I'm thinking of, like, if somebody is, sexually assaulting you or harassing you in any way, it might be more appropriate to use a different technique. I want to recognize that this is a lot more difficult in practice and a lot more complicated in practice than just saying, like, oh yeah, don't judge the person who is threatening you in your workplace or harassing you, or, it's because these things are triggering. It's scary, right? And when I was thinking about this class, I kept coming back to how trauma and, like, fear is kind of at the core when we do exacerbate conflict, like when we make it worse, and even on a smaller scale. So, like, it's very clear how it would be traumatizing for an active shooter to come into your workplace. It's very clear how it would be traumatizing for somebody to like harass you. That being said, it's not quite as clear why it might be traumatizing, and traumatizing is a strong word, but like triggering for you when your spouse didn't do the dishes when you asked them to, or why it might be conflict triggering for you when they didn't hear what you said and you have to repeat yourself, or, they raise their voice or something like that. In those moments, it's not quite so blatant, it's not quite so explicit, but at the core is always a part of us that like wants to protect and defend and fight off the threat that's around us. And a lot of times when we react and respond that way, we continue that narrative. So like we keep that train rolling and play that story out. And a lot of times people will do this over and over again, especially when it comes to the small things. But if you can really take this first technique and try to drop the judgments that you initially have about the person who's in front of you and try to understand what they're feeling, then it can be helpful for you, not just because, understanding a person will help inform what you do next. It will help to inform the choices that you're making about the situation, hopefully, because everybody is different and everybody's motivations, we have similar motivations sometimes, but at the end of the day, everybody is different. So how you approach one conflict with your best friend might not be the way that you approach a conflict with your partner. How you approach a conflict with a customer at work might not be the same way that you approach a conflict with your child. So when you can drop the judgments, you can get an accurate picture because and it's so funny because it plays with what I just said, but it's hard to explain. So because I just said, yes, your choices might be different depending on who you're interacting with and what they need, but that's not it's not because of the judgments. Like, your judgments about what somebody needs will lead you to be probably ineffective with them. Really being open to seeing who they are in a way that you might not have recognized before, and really hearing what they need on a level that clearly they don't feel heard in, you know, can be a really helpful technique. So I'll leave it at that. The first technique here is dropping judgment and being curious about the emotional experience of that person. I consider this to be a mindset technique because it really requires an intentional seeking, curiosity about the person who's in front of you. Okay, and so the next thing that I'm going to share is about the body. So body awareness is another technique that you can use to keep your cool. And this might be the most important one. Like, I probably should have talked about this first, but it's hard for a lot of people to hear. And this is another, I mentioned earlier that these concepts require repeated practice over time to become habit, to really step up to serve you in a conflict moment. But this is even more true with the body. So I mentioned before about how a lot of times when conflict is escalating, it's because people are feeling some form of afraid or angry, and these intense feelings start mixing with each other, and like they build up right around everybody. Have you experienced this? Does a instance come to mind that you're remembering? I would love to hear about it in the chat. And the fear response, like, that's a physical bodily response, right? That's your body fearing its mortality. To really boil it down to the bottom of the barrel, or however you want to say it, your body wants to live, hopefully. And if there's a threat present, and that threat, especially in the smaller day-to-day things, it could be a threat like your needs aren't being met, or somebody threatens to mess up with the way your needs are being met. But at the end of the day, like, the need not being met, if it's a need because you will die if it's not met. Right? So at the end of the day, your body wants to live. And if it perceives some kind of threat that will make it harder to live, then it's gonna react. Plain and simple. And, this is a root of so much anxiety too. I'll just say that this is hands down the biggest, most important thing that I use when it comes to managing my own anxiety is body awareness, and truly, deeply practiced, regularly practiced, daily practice of body awareness. Because when you understand and are open to witnessing your body's reactions, you can slowly start to gain a little bit more control over what they are. So now, you know, I can start to feel, for instance, when my anxiety is starting at the early stages of it, I can feel it in my chest, in my breathing. I see the early signs of that, and I listen. I open up the space and I hear what my body is, what the emotion is that's present, what the need is that's present, and I do my best to provide that need. We talk about this in Conscious Wholeness. It's like basically a third of the inner resources that you have. Body awareness. But I practice this over time. So then in a conflict moment, in a tense moment, in a challenging conversation, I can start to notice when those escalations happen in me, and I can prioritize slowing my breathing down. I can prioritize slowing down and slowing my thoughts down. And again, I could have mentioned this first, because being able to slow your thoughts down and get into your physical experience will help you when it comes to open up your mind and being less judgmental of the person who's in front of you, or the people who are in front of you, or the situation that's in front of you. Just really being present in your physical body and aware of how you're physically reacting to the tension and the conflict in the room, and addressing that. That's the technique here, is body awareness and, kind of a self-monitoring of your body. An awareness of how your body is reacting to the situation around you, and an intentional choice to do what your body needs. Okay? So just to recap here, we've talked about 2 different techniques now for keeping your cool in moments of conflict. One of them is full non-judgment for yourself, which I didn't mention, which is important, but for everybody, for the people around you. And the second technique that I mentioned is body awareness, really being aware of how your body's responding to the conflict and willing to address your needs in the moment, slow your breathing, make yourself more comfortable, do whatever you can to soothe that physical response that you're having to the tension, because it's there. So we'll move on to the third technique that I have for you today. And this is all about emotions, about expressing your emotions. Let's call this emotional honesty, emotional savvy. I'm playing with different ways to talk about this right now, but at the end of the day, this technique is all about making honest observations about how you're feeling in the moment, what you're perceiving in the moment, and what you care about for that person in front of you. So noticing, and you can even weave this in with body awareness. Your emotions, like I said, are very connected to your body. In my experience, they start from that physical place. So you might move into an honest awareness, an honest observation, an honest emotional expression by saying, what you just said increased my heart rate and I felt it go up. So I need a second. Right? And now that person not only knows how they're impacting you, but they know what you need from them to continue the conversation for even a moment further. This is a way of expressing care. So you say that there's somebody who's having a really significant, difficult moment in front of you, and what's coming to mind, some of the tension, the most tense or conflict-filled moments that I felt in healthcare were when somebody was, experiencing like a mental, I don't like the term mental breakdown, experiencing like a heightened emotional state and feeling kind of wild, like suicidal, or like they couldn't even commit to like what they would or wouldn't do. You know, one of the most effective ways that I ever found to bring people back to center was genuinely going through these 3 steps that I just shared with you. So, yeah, opening up to not judge them for what they were going through, monitoring my own physical response to them, and monitoring my own breathing, staying calm, but then reflecting back to them, like, "This is what I'm noticing about you. This is what I'm noticing, and I care about you. I want XYZ for you. I want you to succeed. I want you to feel better. You know, I want you to feel safe." Whatever. Really being willing to be present with your emotional content in the moment and willing to share that with the person who's in front of you. It can dissolve the tension and barriers and, allow them to be honest as well. Because at the end of the day, a lot of times conflict and tension is like emotions overflowing out on everybody. Um, and just to tie this back in for a moment to that full non-judgment, have you ever been in a conflict where you were the one who was escalating it because you were the one who was mad about something? And what does it feel like when people don't get that? When when people insinuate that your emotional reaction isn't valid? It feels awful. Feels freaking bad. And it only makes it only makes me more upset when I feel like I can't be understood. And a big secret, when you lean on being able to understand yourself emotionally, you won't feel misunderstood because you will understand yourself. And if somebody else doesn't get that, it's really only a matter of time before they do or like they don't, but it doesn't matter because you have your own self-understanding. And that's what this third technique for keeping your cool in conflict is all about, is like a really emotionally savvy, emotionally honest approach where you are in a step-to-step dance with the emotions that you're experiencing, and you're able to share that experience with the person who's in front of you in a full ownership sort of way, not in a "you are making me feel this way," but in an "I'm feeling this way." Putting everybody on the same page. It does help. So try it out and let me know. We've got a comment here from my love, Amanda. I'm so happy you're here. And I'm so happy you found the chat. Yay. Amanda agrees. She says, yes, my neck, throat gets super tight with fear. If I sit with it and become aware, it helps me slow down. Totally. I love that. And I can relate. I bet a lot of people can relate to that with the neck and throat constricting with fear. I've been thinking about my throat a lot lately as I try to let my voice out more. Fear, it's like a constriction. it's a constriction. And think about what happens when you're trying to constrict a large amount of anything. It wants to explode and blow up, right? And what we're talking about here is creating more space for all of the things that are feeling constricted inside, both for yourself and for the person that or people that you're with. I love that. Thank you so much for commenting, Amanda. So just to recap here, the 3 techniques that we've gone over so far are about embracing non-judgment and curiosity about the person or people who are in front of you, and always starting with yourself. Body awareness is the second technique, really being aware of how your body is physically responding to the conflict and willing to address that in a way that makes sense. And the third technique I shared is about emotional honesty and emotional savvy, really being willing to create more space for the emotional experiences that are happening in the room, both your own and the people around you. And then the next technique is a natural next step from that, really, which is about setting strong, clear, loving, respectful boundaries with the people who are around you. So there is a tendency to think that we have to be like really harsh with the boundaries that we set, or really, puffed up is the word that's coming to mind, that we need to be, just like super rigid about the boundaries that we're setting. But at the end of the day, I've found that boundaries are best set with love, with a little bit of flexibility perhaps, but always with love and respect for the people who we're setting the boundary with a trust that they will, and an expectation that they will respect our boundary. Clear instructions, clear feedback about what you need and what you expect. Really, speaking to your belief in them. So I want to find a really good example of this. So the example that's coming to mind, and I don't even have kids, but I can only imagine that if you have kids who are creating a lot of chaos in the house, right? That are just running wild. They're like, they need to play. They haven't been outside in ages, whatever the case may be. Chaos running through the house. And you need peace and freaking quiet. And this is driving you insane. So let's walk that scenario through with the techniques that we've just outlined. So instantly, the awareness is required about what's happening, right? Because you could get, I imagine, and I can kind of get this just from my own household, that, it can get easy to be heightened from the chaos going on around you, if you're not being intentional about it. So I might start to notice like my shoulders are creeping up and I'm just like going a little bit nuts in my head. Like I can't find space and quiet in my head. And that can make it really hard to make intentional choices, right? Because my instinct is to want to react and just be like, shut up, meet the level where they're at and just like, be kind of chaotic, but like at least meet them and ask, maybe in not so nice a way. But if instead I recognize that, okay, so now I notice like, oh, I'm getting heightened. Okay. First of all, full non-judgment. Like, okay, everybody is doing the best that they can. I am doing the best that I can. They are doing the best that they can. Really stepping into a place of like, I'm not wrong for being tense. They're not wrong for being playful. This just is. We're sharing the house, right? Body awareness, already kind of touched on that. And notice the shoulders going up, I can bring them down. I can start to stretch. I can deepen my breathing, go lay down. I can do whatever I need to do to create some space for myself. A lot of times, to be honest with you, I find that just those two steps help. But because then when I create that space for my body, especially in the case of being home, and I'll go through a workplace example too after this, but especially when I'm home, if I create space for my body's experience, I find that everybody in my household, their mood and energy shifts just like even without me talking to them. So if I need a moment and I just say, I gotta go lay down for a minute, and I go lay down, everybody calms down while I'm in there somehow. Try it out. I've had clients say exactly the same thing. Our energy is powerful and it sets the tone even when we move into a different room. But say it didn't calm down. Say that I took some time to myself and it's still really crazy chaotic out there, and I still need some time to myself. So at this point, though, by creating that space for my body, I gained a little bit more clarity about what the emotional experience was that I was having. And now I come out into the room from a more bodily needs met place. And I might sit calmly down while everybody is crazy around me. I might pull my partner aside. Who needs to hear the reflection that I realized through making space for my body and processing my emotion? That might differ from person to, depending on the situation. But I could say, for maybe it's just my kids and I need to sit them down and say, I am feeling not great. Obviously you have to be age appropriate with kids. That can vary. But I am feeling like I need space. I need some peace and quiet. And when I have peace and quiet, the reason I want that is so that I can be a better mom to you. The reason I want that is so I can be kinder and more loving and more thoughtful. And right now, it's hard for me to really feel that, because when it's kind of crazy and I need some space, it just, I can't fill up my cup or whatever, however you want to say it. And you can share this honest observation about what your experience is. And then set a loving and respectful boundary. Would you be okay with playing in your room for this amount of time? Could we do an activity that's a little more quiet? Maybe you could go play outside, or, I am going to go in my room for another 30 minutes and I really need you guys to be quiet out here. I would really appreciate it. And also with setting strong, loving, respectful boundaries, a part of that can be setting expectations for what happens if the boundary can't be met, right? So like and I don't know what that would be with kids necessarily, but when you're sharing that loving, respectful boundary with somebody, let them know what the consequences will be and be honest about it, because a true boundary that you need to set is true, right? Like you're asking for what you need. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. So, I need to find a way to get this, whether you're gonna help with the process or not, basically. And set expectations for what that'll look like. So leave me a comment and let me know if there are questions coming up for you. If this is clear, again, I'll restate the techniques that I've been sharing, which are about 1, non-judgment, curious empathy about the experience of yourself and the people around you. 2, body awareness, noticing your physical response, addressing the physical response that you're having, right? Honoring that. 3, emotional honesty, emotional savvy, being willing to use the emotional experience you're having, the emotional experience they're having, and bring observations about that to the table and act accordingly, set boundaries accordingly, which is 4, to set clear, loving, respectful boundaries that have clear expectations. So let's go through a workplace example with these. Say that there's somebody who comes in to your workplace that feels threatening, right? So first of all, every example, I feel like I should have said body awareness first, because that's the first thing that usually, especially after practicing these sorts of techniques over time, like we do inside of Conscious Wholeness, really early awareness for me usually starts with being aware of what I'm physically feeling and responding to that. So this person is in here. I notice right away, shoulders go up, heart rate increases. Okay, take some deep breaths. Center. All right. So then we enter a place of non-judgment. First of all, for ourselves. This is a totally normal way for me to be reacting right now. I don't need to make this mean anything about me or them, but this is what's happening. I honor my physical experience. I don't want to judge them. And open up to what could be happening for them, okay? Again, because we only see such a small part of what people are going through. And when we bring our judgment to the table, it is a lot easier to escalate a conflict as opposed to bring it back. Okay? That's why the non-judgment is important. It's difficult to do, and it is important to have your guard up in some situations to like understand where genuine threats are and respond to those threats. I'm not saying you don't do that and you just like love puddle all over everyone regardless of their safety level and like how safe you feel around them. That's not what I'm saying. But in a moment of conflict, you are more likely to anger that person further by placing a judgment on them that doesn't feel good for them, frankly. It's one thing to offer an honest emotional observation like, hey, you seem upset. Is there anything I can do to help? Is there anything sometimes that would vary in appropriateness level. Again, you have to adjust according to what your situation is. But really try your best and practice releasing the judgments that you bring to the table, okay? So all right, we've got a threatening person here. We are noticing our physical reaction and we're doing what we can to breathe, monitor our physical reaction, do what we need to feel safe. If that person genuinely is like a threat to your immediate physical safety, say they've been a problem in the past, or they, are clearly like gonna hurt you, then I mean, honor your body's wisdom. Get the heck out of there. Okay? Don't put yourself in harm's way. And if it is right in the situation, instead of, fleeing, you can also choose to ground this way. Body awareness, really staying firmly grounded in what your physical experience is and honoring what that is, okay? And again, emotional, honest observations with the person. So if this is a threat in the office, you could say, hey, I would love to talk to you about this, but we can't really do it in a place that, we're scaring other people around us. There are people who are nervous in the waiting room. Let's go out into the hallway. Let's change our location. Let's, whatever. Making an emotional, honest observation about what's happening inside of you and for the other people in the room. Make an honest observation about what they are doing that is bringing fear. Like if that's an appropriate time, again, we talked about it's not always appropriate to do this, but, is their tone elevated? Is their expression angry? What is it that's letting you know that something's not right? And can you honestly observe and reflect that back to them? And again, set strong, clear boundaries. So like I need you to lower your tone to keep the waiting room here safe and calm for everybody who's here. Or, if we're not able to do that, I'll have to, call security if you have security. Really understanding what the boundaries are and setting them. And again, so when it comes to being grounded and staying cool, the body is a really huge factor. If you take one thing away from this, to stay cool in conflict, monitor your body's reaction and give yourself what you need, moment to moment to moment. Because at the end of the day, when your body trusts that you are listening to what it needs and are willing to adjust accordingly, you can get through a lot. And that's a really important thing to have. And you will ground the people around you. So, how is this for you? If you're still here, let me know what's going on. What are you thinking? Do you have any questions? And now let's talk about how to take care of yourself after the fact. So at the end of the day, even with the techniques I just shared with you, it can be really upsetting to go through a moment of conflict at work or anywhere. It can be really off-putting to deal with that. And it's so important to take care of yourself before, during, and after. Again, this is, I'm encouraging you to take these things on as like a moment-to-moment practice. That's what we talk about inside of Conscious Wholeness, is making these sorts of choices and responses habit, so that in the moments of conflict, it's that much easier to reach for them. So a huge part of taking care of yourself in general is around practicing these concepts: non-judgment, body awareness, emotional savvy, emotional honesty, setting strong, clear boundaries. These are all ways to take care of yourself as well, before, during, and after. And I want to put an extra emphasis on emotional alchemy and, processing your emotions. There was a comment that somebody made on a share of this class about like, or we could just rage out and break stuff, right? And I said that sometimes this is absolutely necessary to rage out and break stuff. And when we take care of ourselves in that way, where like, if you need to rage out and break stuff, that you create the space for that somewhere in your day, it is going to make it that much easier for you to keep your wits about you when life starts to shake you up. Because when we're not processing the emotions that build up and linger under the surface, again, they all get contained in a very tight space and the tension builds, right? So part of reducing tension in all situations is it being in flow with your emotions this way. So if you experience something where you felt threatened at work, it is totally normal to feel completely thrown off and emotional about that. But what I don't want you to do is to shove it down into the recesses of yourself, to go on with your day-to-day and not acknowledge it. What I'm asking you to do, how I take care of myself after something like that happens, is to make the space to feel what I'm feeling and dive in head first, full force. Feel it fully. Because only then can I gain nuggets of wisdom about what is really deeply important to me, what I really want to work towards overall. So this is another way that I really take care of myself through tense, conflict-filled moments, is to gain clarity around what I want to experience more of through those moments. So like, for instance, if I was sexually harassed at work and I was just so upset and disgusted by that, understandably so, and I went through all of these steps and I still felt some emotion from that I wasn't able to really express in the moment because I was regulating my body rather than allowing it to kind of like trauma respond. And I was trying to express my emotions, yes, honestly, but in a directed, calming, soothing way. I might have a lot of residual anger that needs to be processed when I get home, where I'm just pissed and angry that happened. And I need to lean into that. I need to rage out. I need to create space to make that happen. And I can gain clarity about how I want to maybe empower other people when this happens. I mean, spoiler alert, that's like what's happening here. I've been absolutely harassed in the workplace before. I get it. And what really helps me take care of myself after the fact is to feel my feelings, just feel it and use it as fuel to come back stronger, come back more powerful, to understand with more clarity how I want to show up in those moments. So these two techniques that I'm sharing for taking care of yourself after the fact are really emotional processing, whatever happened, making sure that you're creating the space to just feel whatever you feel about it and hear what your needs are so that you can meet those needs, right? In healthy ways. And also clarity, seeking clarity through the challenging situation, using it to inform a little bit more of how you would love to show up, about how you would love your interactions to go, how you want the world to be, how you want to serve the world. These are two ways that I really keep myself on track and growing, even when conflict and disruptions happen. So I hope that this is helpful. I've shared a lot with you today, and I would love to hear what you think. Please comment away. I would love to hear it. I would love to share with you a little bit more about conscious wholeness, as I promised, because at the end of the day, as I said, making these things habitual is exactly what will set you up to use them in the moments when you really need to use them. Because it's hard when a conflict is happening and you're not in the practice, or you're new in the practice of doing some of these things. It takes some time to practice. But if you commit some time to practicing these on a daily basis, it becomes second nature to you. So that's what's available to you inside of conscious wholeness. And I also want to say that doing all of these things that I've shared, especially the emotional pieces, can be really, really challenging within the system, within any system, whether it be the educational system, the healthcare system, the legal system, whatever. Like, the systems in our society are not set up to make space for your emotions. The reasons that you've learned to shove some of this down is to show up as like a normal person, to be able to go to work, to be able to just keep putting one foot in front of the other day to day. It's a large part of how we view emotions as a society is just like, we don't have time for that. Shove them down. You got to keep it moving. And the truth is, though, that when we get all this stuff, I mean, I've said this several times now, what happens when you get too full of all that stuff? The tension is just there all the time. There's always something that wants to boil over. So the only way to really get away from that is to do the work of digging in and just feeling what's there and letting it out. Because it actually doesn't take that long. We always think it's going to take longer. If I had a penny for every time that I avoided something because I thought it was just like awful, or it was going to be awful, and then I finally did it and it's like, oh, wasn't that bad? Oh, that didn't take nearly as much time as I thought it was going to take. That's how emotions are too. And it frees up so much energy that you're not using to hold and constrict it inside. Instead, there's space, there's energy and freedom of movement for you to just be who you are and feel the way that you feel. It's a very powerful way to be. But with the right supports in place, even though it's difficult to be working inside of systems and tapped into your emotions, it is possible to do it as long as you have the right supports in place, as long as you are intentionally weaving this in, as long as you are intentionally surrounding yourself with a community that is practicing these things as well. So that's what conscious wholeness is all about. And it's really important that we do this work right now. Our world really needs more grounding forces. Really, really, truly. We need to heal the emotional baloney that is just so built up for all of us. And it's time to be a little bit more free in that way. It's time to just give ourselves what we need. And thriving is accessible to all of us. It comes from this emotional connection. It genuinely does. I'm rambling a little bit about emotions, but I just know so strongly that what we seek in life is not the material possessions. It's not more money. It's not, you know, the stereotypical things that we're taught to believe are like the end all be all of success. Because there are people who have all of that and more that aren't happy. At the end of the day, really being able to feel the beauty of life is everything. It's like the whole point. But we have to be willing to feel to get there, period. So, yes. And there is room. I think there is room for this to come in. Again, we need to have support in place. I really believe that if I had had the supports that I have in place now of conscious wholeness and just like having the content and meditations to lean on, I genuinely think that I might have been able to stay in healthcare and pursue that. But it was just a lot for me to try to work within that system. I had something else I wanted to share. So, I mean, it's all perfect. This is where we are, but I would love to hear what you're taking away. And so, conscious wholeness, if you want to connect with us there, we would love to have you. And you have options. And again, I'll say this is just an essential part of keeping cool in general for me, spreading peace, feeling safe, and knowing that I'm doing everything I can to support my own safety. Like, conscious wholeness is the core of so much for me. But if you want to connect, there are several ways to get connected with conscious wholeness. It's super easy. You will get lifetime access to the group and all the content with as little as $5 one time. So, I ideally, if it's a $5 commitment that you're willing to make, many people do that monthly. And that works well for them, and it keeps them committed and aware of what they're doing. But as little as $5 one time, you'll get all of the content, all lifetime updates, all of the community. The reason why I do that is because I believe that these concepts are so essential and so core that they should be taught in school. Everybody should have access to this. And I've found that almost everyone can find $5 for something that they want. And if you really want to do this work, I really want you to be able to do it. So that's why it is that way. That being said, there are additional levels of support available. If you want to work with me personally, you can donate $500. If you want to do that ongoing, you can do $500 a month. That is totally up to you. And that would give you monthly one-on-one talks with me over the phone. You can text me, call me. You'll have my personal guidance as you go through the content and implement it. And I also have an option where you can get professional guidance from me. So I've started to have people coming to me with clients that they're feeling unsupported with, and they want to debrief what's happening. So there's an option for that as well. Really, you can make this what you want and what you need at the time. And if you have any questions about that, I would love to hear it. But at the very least, I would love for you to join. And I will make sure that there is a link. I can put it in the comments right now for those of you who are there. I will link to Conscious Wholeness. And I want to talk to you too about the other option that there is. And part of how I keep this working is to keep it available in this way. And I'm pretty committed to keeping this so easily accessible for the lifetime of the course. I also partner with organizations. So I can come in and do private class series for an organization. I can consult with you about how to weave conscious wholeness into your organization. And so that looks like, and it can look like different things for different people, but making sure that you're nurturing a culture of everybody is whole, where people feel like their needs are getting met. It supports creativity, and it can really open pathways for people to connect with the supports that already exist in their life. So I found workplaces are excited that it can help people connect with their EAP a little bit more freely. So like if there are, other health options or learning options that your organization offers, if you help them access conscious wholeness, then this work can help them make space to implement other things that they need to connect with other supports that they have. And really making sure that we're building the world up exactly how we want it, as opposed to just, getting swept away into ways of being that are old and worn out and not working for anybody anymore. So I want to share the work that I do with organizations because that's part of how the balance is kept, right? Is that there are large organizations that engage with conscious wholeness that keeps it much easier and more sustainable for me to continue providing it as freely accessible as it is, which again is $5. Like, come on. The meditations alone that are in Conscious Wholeness are easily worth, way more than $5. So if it calls to you even a little bit and you're not in there, what are you waiting for? Join me in there, please. I would love nothing more than to witness you in all of this work. And I have a big vision for this and I need your partnership. At the end of the day, I can't move this forward by myself. I need you. If you're called to this and you are enjoying this, I need you with me, because the vision is really big and I want to make this accessible for everyone. So hearing your experience with it will greatly improve my ability to do that, to make the course better, to make the information even more helpful, and to keep it accessible for more people. So if you're ready to show up and do the work, I hope that you'll join me, and I promise to make it as fun as humanly possible. I don't see any questions coming up in the chat, but if you have any, even if this is the replay, please leave them. Let me know. I will respond, and I greatly appreciate any thoughts and feedback you have for me. So I think that's it. If nobody's got anything that's here, that's all the content I've got for you today. And look, we're even 15 minutes earlier than the original 2:00 end time. I could not be more proud of that, by the way. So I hope that this was helpful for you. If you're still watching this, you're a rock star, an hour and 20 minutes in, and you're still here. I just genuinely could not be more appreciative. I hope that I will see you inside of Conscious Wholeness. And another thing to be aware of, especially if you're watching this now or within the next couple days, is that if you're, curious for more, there's a 5 days of wholeness experience that's also available on my YouTube channel. It'll be available through Sunday, so through April 25th. I might leave it up a little while on Monday morning, we'll see. But really, if you want to watch it on Sunday. You can sign up for the 5 days of wholeness through Sunday. Even though the experience is over, so you won't get the email updates, you will get instant access to all the content that was part of that experience, including 3 meditations that will be going into the Conscious Wholeness vault, if you will, after I take the experience down. But it is still up for now. So if you're watching this and you want to check that out, I hope you will. I would love to hear what you think about that as well. And, if there are questions that you have, something I didn't cover, I'm always happy to show up and teach a class like this. So maybe there will be a part 2. I don't know. Let me know what you think. Let me know what questions you have. The sky is the limit. The possibilities are endless. And I love you. You're amazing. Please remember that you are just incredibly wonderful. There's only one you. And it is my deepest pleasure to be spending this time with you right now. Thank you for being here. Mwah.